find yourself swept away by the constant change and turmoil around you? Whether personal or professional, these challenges can keep us from living a life of peace and productivity. I'm Liz Hurrell, a licensed clinical marriage and family therapist, and I want to show you data-driven strategies to help bring stability and peace to your life. Welcome to the Anchored in Chaos podcast. Liz Hurrell, licensed clinical marriage and family therapist.
Yeah.
I have a private practice. And then I decided to do a podcast.
That's right, yeah. I'm Dr. Tim Caldwell, chiropractor by profession. But I'm also the owner and operator of a business called Genuine Effort, LLC. Liz and I have collaborated now for 8 months. Our collaboration now has led us to this podcast. And we're going to talk about some things that we get to share some expertise in. I have almost 40 years in mine, and Liz is going on 9 years now.
Close, inching up towards a decade in private practice.
Yeah.
In social services and psychology themselves. If I say the number, then it seems a bit old. But yes, over 20 years, yes. I mean, not as old as you, of course, but older.
How I see this is going to go. Anyway, what are we talking about?
Before we get to that, I think it's important to talk about that I soon will be a co-host on your podcast. Yeah, it's going to happen.
All things planned. We'll have Liz and I in collaboration again on my side of the house, Genuine Effort LLC. We'll have my own podcast, and Liz will be my co-host and my very, very, very much frequent guest. The opportunity to speak about those things that I believe are important, not just within training, but I used to believe I had valuable information, but how much could I put out? But when we started actually talking, it's almost limitless because...
Oh, it is definitely.
As much as I believe in the philosophies and the paradigms of people who are in training, I now have some expertise to bounce some things off because I do believe everything below the neck is anatomy, physiology, chemistry, kinesiology, neurology, but now everything above the shoulders is psychology, psychiatry, all of those things that tie into how the body and mind work together.
Should.
Yeah, sure.
That's the key word there. Should.
Yeah. So some of the things that we talk about, especially on your side of the house, are going to be those things that are more on the above the shoulders. What we're doing to get through life and to deal with different things. And yeah, I always appreciate you letting me sit in.
I appreciate having you.
Yeah.
Very great.
I love it.
Do you want to talk about acceptance?
Yeah.
It's kind of broad.
It is broad. Narrow it down.
What is self-acceptance?
Mm-hmm.
So, do you know where I got this idea from? Well, society, but in my practice, in what I see, and in what I, as an individual, struggle in myself.
Mm-hmm.
How do we become comfortable with ourselves and stop trying to fit into everybody else's boxes? And when do we know that we're not in anybody else's boxes? That's another thing. And I hear that, and I have a deep compassion for individuals that are suffering and looking for acceptance. What is self-acceptance? Where does that come from? Where do we learn about ourselves? Mm-hmm. Well, start with childhood and those experiences through our parental systems as how they interacted with us, what they taught us about communication, love, acceptance, not to sound redundant. And what's interesting, I guess, one of my thoughts is a new concept in I would say in psychotherapy is self-care, self-love, self-care. And that's a teetering, I would say, thought process there, because if you're like too involved with yourself, or maybe you don't pay yourself any attention at all. So what's the balance, right?
Right.
Scales, that's a better way.
Okay, so we go off one end, we go off the deep end. So, yeah, all of this, you know, the fact that we get to speak about this stuff privately and casually, we spoke about AI on another topic in the podcast. We talked about positivity, body positivity. These things are all interrelated, right?
100%.
And in my realm, where people they seek me out for, can you help me make some changes or a betterment for where I am on the physical side? I can't without there being a commitment on the mental side. Mine is it's in vain to have a person show up, stand back, do 3 sets of 20, pat on the head, and release them into the world. That does no good unless we have the opportunity to change the way they think. When you mentioned acceptance as a topic, I thought, wow, that's broad, but it's very trendy, it's very topical, and it's actually very, very important because we struggle. Everyone struggles with acceptance, right? We all see Michael Jackson's song, "The Man in the Mirror."
Yeah,
That's
a good one.
It's strange what we see in the mirror.
Very.
It's strange what we see in the mirror.
And I'll tell you, it's interesting that you would bring that up because I say this all the time in sessions. The hardest thing that I can get individuals to do is hold up the mirror and say who's accountable, who's responsible for this. Because there's the notion that I'm not really, this was done to me, therefore these are my behaviors and my reactions, and it's okay because this is what happened. This is what transpired. It gives me out of jail free card of my behavior kind of thing.
This is the die was cast and I'm stuck in it.
Yeah. And getting to a point, now I understand that mentality because if I go to generationally what your upbringing, we are creatures of our own environment. Mm-hmm. And if that's what I taught, we only know what we know. Hi, Angelou. When you know better, do better.
Yeah.
I have that in my office.
Yeah.
And the fact that how do we give ourselves a break? But what I mean by that is when I'm very fortunate and humbled at the opportunity to sit in a room with an individual in such a place of despair and loss of self.
Yeah.
And being able to be there with them and be present.
Yeah.
And say, now I'm right here, but you're the one that has to get off your knees.
Yeah.
And how do you discover getting off your knees, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. And I'm not, I don't want to leave you alone here because there's been
even being there where get up. That's an option. Mm-hmm. They think they have to crawl around. You don't. What can we do? Can we change you in the environment? Can we change the environment around you?
It's the way you think about your environment, and which goes into the roles that kind of blends into the roles of social media mm-hmm. and how it develops us into what we think we are.
That is a deep, dark pool right there. When you drag social media into it, my gosh, the complications are endless. It's one thing that's society, say pre-internet, let's say pre-1980s. It's one thing that individual body image and self-confidence were perhaps being tested. I think some people would blame weight, religion, sex, race. Those may have been some topical things, but now it's everything. It's your hair's not the right color. I've seen more people persecuted for having red hair in the last 10 years. And maybe it's because we're all hyper connected and it's just flooding the stuff like this. But really, it's like bullying from the schoolyard to the worldwide net, right? And how do you get around that?
Yeah, it's interesting that you say it because I've had individuals tell me when I got away from high school, I thought I got away from this BS, and now it just follows me wherever I go. Yeah. And people want to friend me or follow me or whatever it is. It's like, I haven't talked to you in how long?
Yeah.
It's like, I am that person like, okay, we haven't spoken in this period of time. And I try and keep all my accounts very private. And when someone kind of hunts me or sorts me out, I'm like, are you just like curious what's going on in my life?
Yeah.
Versus like, you haven't authentically been an integral part of my life in the last few years. I don't understand. But what's interesting about that, so I have to shift gears there, is that when that does happen to some individuals, it's like, oh, they still care. They're still interested in what's going on for me. Like this perceived idea is, maybe I still matter at some level of acceptance, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe we can reconnect. And I'm not against, reconnecting with people. I'm probably just a little pessimist there and I'm pretty private. Yeah. So like if you haven't been apart, where you been, probably not necessary for you to be back. But anyways, I'm just saying for other individuals that do, they want to be seen so much. Yeah. And I tell this, do you see you? Do you know who you are? Yeah. I mean.
Yeah. That's the heart of the matter, really. So back to the social media.
Yes.
So young people today, in today's society, anybody up to the age of, let's say, 35, they had a bit of a different world, right? And the luxury and exposure of social media, laptop computers, they weren't as available. Now, everybody is reduced to, what did I call it? A creature scratching at glass. The very fact that we spend so much time liking things. No, I don't just like it. I heart it. I love that thing. I don't even know what that definition means.
Right.
But I think it's interesting that we have people that are wounded that you don't. Right? I posted something really good. I didn't get any likes. I mean, they're wounded by it.
No, severely.
Yeah.
I mean, significantly. I see that and I hear that a lot. And that's what I'm talking about, self-acceptance. You're seeking out validation in whatever is going on in your life or this thing or that. And if someone doesn't give you a like or a comment or something, then it's all for naught.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. That's an amazing moment that you're not taking for self. You're giving it away, hoping someone will see the importance of you.
Yeah, but, and there's no buts to any of this stuff. It's all inclusive and every element has some important, every element plays a part. But what I will say that, how did we get to become so fragile that we need it, right? And in the acceptance that we can't accept ourselves, the man in the mirror, but we rely so much on we evaluate ourselves by the way we think people evaluate us. We've turned over our own comfort to somebody else. And identity, absolutely. Tell us about what was that series, Black Mirror?
Yes.
Yeah. Tell us about that episode.
Yeah.
It's a
Nosedive. That's the name of it.
That's the episode, yeah.
Nosedive.
But it's
the premises.
But it's a series called Black Mirror.
I love all of Black Mirror's episodes. They have this
a Netflix.
Yeah, it's a Netflix series. I really enjoy all of their most of their episodes have this really psychological turn to it, which is probably intriguing for me. But
kind of Twilight Zone stuff.
Yeah, it is. There's Nosedive I want to talk about, but then there's another one in their most recent release, season 6 now maybe, of an AI that is making simulations inside of simulations, and people can't they're trapped in what is reality versus what is fiction. And when I was watching it with my son, I was like, this is what's happening. And I seem like a little bit of a crazy person, but I don't want to divert. But anyways, Black Mirror is a great series. Yeah. And Nosedive, I watched, a few years ago. It was in season 3. So it's been a minute.
I didn't realize it was that old.
But yeah.
You just
told me. But yeah, it's pretty.
Okay. It's 2 now.
Keep trying. But yeah, but it was that impactful. I think about it all the time. Mm-hmm. And I've actually asked clients to look at it. Mm-hmm. I want you to watch this episode. I want you to tell me what you think.
Yeah.
And they come back and they're like, oh my goodness, Liz. And I'm like, especially people that really thrive off of social media, which is a large population.
Yeah.
And
our ages 20 and under, for sure. 25 and under, for sure. Thrive on it.
No, that's, again, their identity. It's, I don't want to get too far off because I have a teenage daughter that struggles with, she finally just disconnected, deleted Instagram altogether. I was proud of her.
Yeah.
I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, do that.
Yeah.
This is not your value.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
That's being a little bit of a mama bear and an occupational hazard. But so Nosedive is the premises, and I know you watched a clip of it because I wanted to go over it with you, is this young woman that is pretty much trying to, in a way, be accepted by everyone and everything around her.
Yeah.
And it's all tallied by her score of how she gets, in our world, like likes or follows or whatever, hearts or whatever you want to call
Yeah.
it.
So to lay this out, if people don't get a chance to see this, in this world, everybody's carrying their digital device, and when you encounter somebody, a pop-up will pop up,
Right.
and it'll have your score.
Your score.
Yeah,
Right.
in stars,
Your
right?
level of importance.
Like you rate an Uber.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
and everybody has it on display.
You're exposed.
Yeah, and when you come encounter with people who have different scores, there are people who are trying to better their scores by giving them good scores. And what do they find out? It doesn't always work. You can
It's not reciprocal.
It's not reciprocal. It's not reciprocal. In fact, they even go as far as to point out in the analysis of the episode that it's really just a division trying to protect itself in a division, right? So we're 4.8 and above, and you're 4.7 and below, right? And maybe I'll help you out, maybe I won't, but in all likelihood, you better give me a good score.
It's class.
It's class.
It's class.
It's class, yeah.
At best. And so in this episode, she's thriving to, or trying to get into this 4.8 category.
Right.
And so she gets the better place. She's sharing a reasonable home with her brother.
Yeah.
But she wants another place. And
Once again, she's striving to get this score so she can live in a better thing, a better community that's more accepted by other people.
Right.
But it's not much better than where she's living. It's just so expensive. She's wrapped up in the idea. Yeah,
I
that this will make me look better.
She's wrapped up in the ideas. I'll feel better. I'll feel loved. I'll feel accepted.
Yeah.
I'll feel wanted.
Yeah.
And as long as I get this, and there's a portion of it in the clip you watched, but the show where she is practicing laughing.
Yeah.
And it's so horrible. Just to give that indication to another human being that you're enjoying their company, which people know when someone's being real and not. But it's please see me, please like me, like me. And so she walks around with this plastered smile on her face all the time.
Yeah.
It seems painful.
Yeah.
And it's and very sad. And then when she encounters someone with a lower score, she really can't give them, even though they used to be her friend, she can't really engage them or talk to them because it's like, but if you're seen talking to someone who's a 3.1, then you're going to get scored down because you're in a lower class.
So she has, and to help demonstrate a little bit more of just how this class thing works is at her work, you can't even work there unless you have a certain. So this guy, this coworker of hers, who she likes, he fell below the scale and he couldn't get in the building. But she knows, I can't show you any favoritism because people will see me, favor you, and you'll damage my score. So she ostracizes him. He in turn ostracizes her. And in turn, everybody's ostracized, right? Except for
the upper class. So as the story tells, it is a mirror of what happens to her because eventually her breakdown of this masquerade, this facade she's putting on, she goes outside. Well, she's supposed to get in a taxi. She's late for the taxi. The Uber driver scores are down. She's walking out to her car. She bumps into someone of a 4.2 status and higher. She spills coffee on them. And then they rate her down.
Yeah.
So she's like spiraling. And then every
a
little
chain of events just
right.
keep pecking away at
right.
her.
And she's goes to the airport to try and get to this wedding. That will the point of her getting to this wedding is to get her score higher.
And she can't even get on the plane because her score has just dramatically dropped
and
really shortly.
She didn't even rent a decent car.
Yeah.
She rents this little POS because that's all her score allows.
Yeah.
And as she's standing in line and she is trying her best, and this is a scene that the full scene I'm describing here you didn't see. She is like almost pleading with this woman with this plastered smile, like, I really need this. And these people behind her are just right behind her, just And then she gets what's called double damage because she's over a 3. She's under a 3 now.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, like, you go to like score prison for that. And
which we find out they literally have a prison for people. Yeah.
That meet the bottom of the barrel. But there is a really beautiful part of which is it shows you that she rented this horrible car that doesn't get her there, and she's at her wit's end. She's waving people down. A trucker pulls over, a female truck driver, and she starts basically telling her, like, I used to play that rap race.
So from what I saw, because that social thing pops up, it just pops up. The trucker looks over and sees her score and goes, I don't play that game. Mm-hmm. And she then begins to red pill her, which is really interesting because it's really very interesting in that episode. I encourage everyone to watch it. I will watch it again. I think there's a lot of great symbology and stuff in that. But she red pills her. Mm-hmm. And for those who don't know, red pill is she opens her eyes to the fact that this is all a lie.
She said she's like the water and then the whiskey. The whiskey was the red thermos.
Right.
And her symbolization is when she's on the side of the road, she opens up the canister and she starts chugging the whiskey.
Right.
And it's like, that's her freedom almost, not the whiskey and all. It's the symbol, like you're like the symbolic piece of this is exhausting.
Yeah.
Like this is so tiring.
I'm so tired of pretending.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then she gets to this wedding and she shows up. I think it's her really true self. She calls people out and at this time, I mean, she gets no score because it goes into such a deficit. They don't go into negative.
She didn't even have a good enough score to get in the wedding.
That's right.
Yeah, remember?
She had to climb the wall. Oh, yeah. You didn't see the show.
I didn't see the show.
The poem, so just to climb the wall to get in.
Yeah, but she shows up and she's supposed to be a bridesmaid and she's all tattered and dirty and
that's scary.
She looks like a wreck. But at this point, she's totally red pilled, right? And she's done playing the game and
security drags her off and she's telling this childhood friend, I think it's I love you, Nene, I think is what she's saying, which is her nickname. And and it's so beautiful because when you watch it, their friendship began out of they had little rag dolls that I think they're made for each other or something along those lines. But the innocence of children, and it was in that moment, that's what like really kind of got to me was how did we lose all of this?
Yeah.
Like, how did we get to this level where, by the way, she, was screaming out profanities and she's saying, I slept with your husband you just married.
Yeah, she totally turns over every rock.
Every one of them.
Yeah.
It's kind of beautiful, but probably a little alarming.
Yeah, I'm not sure how you say the name. Wachowski brothers. They're the ones who produced it. It's supposed to be like a dark comedy. Mm-hmm. It's dark. And there are things that are fun. There are funny parts in it, but in that she comes to the realization that the freedom is to cast off all of these cares of being so. It's too late because now she's headed for score prison or whatever. They literally lock her in a cell.
Well, they talk about the show's premise is all these pastel light free colors. Nothing is darker. There's a darker moment, not just in her cell that she gets put into, but when she's in the truck driver's cab. Mm-hmm. Like that's probably another area where she's, I think, like a flannel, just normal in her, attire, I would say. Mm-hmm. Like, this drug driver is not playing a role anymore.
Yeah,
like, she's done.
Yeah.
And which is a little alarming for the actress who's playing the role. Like, how do you just not do it?
Yeah.
And I will tell you how many times do I get, and I'm sure you've had this, how do you not care, Liz? And I'm like, it's not that I don't care, because my daughter has asked me that. Oh, I wish you could be like you and not care. And I'm like, I do care, but I just don't let it accumulate to the value of who I am.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm not going to stress myself to a place of, if this is just something you're not about, that's fine.
I'll be the devil's advocate here, because part of the reason they seek you out in treatment is somebody needs to speak to somebody who cares. Mm-hmm. You care.
Absolutely.
I guarantee you care. I know you personally, that you're very caring. But, you know, to put a finer point on what you meant about not caring is, you can't pour yourself into everything. There'll be nothing left of you. And you're going to have to pick and choose. Are these things that, is the return on investment? Is there hope that they'll ever be returned? Will it be reciprocated? I don't know. We all have tolerances, and those tolerances can be severely dashed by disappointment, and the people who can harm you the most in disappointment are family and people you love. Promises made are not promises kept, and they can be so devastating. I understand the not caring. We've commented about the commonality in the way that we're raised, and that I have no qualms about saying that I've been accused by people who I thought were my friends and family about being a little cold and distant about some things. Some things around money, and some things around health, and some things. It's not that I'm cold. It's that I'm going to tell you the cold hard facts, and then I'm going to step back. You're going to deal with it, and I'm not going to be a monkey in your circus. You need help. I'm here, but I have my own circus to run. Right? I don't have time for everybody else's circus.
Sure.
That's
not my monkey, not my circus.
That's fair. Isn't that fair? I think that's fair.
Oh, it's beyond fair. It's healthy mindset right there. I can't go around being everybody's savior.
Yeah.
No thanks.
Yeah. But, you know, the neat thing about this program, and I'm glad we got a chance to talk about this really hit us today, and I appreciate that you brought this up. But in the realm of acceptance, how do those, well, I should say put this way, there are people who are like firebrands. Now, not the extreme Elon Musks and all of those people who create AI and all of these people who are just innovative beyond innovative. I'm not talking to that realm, but I am talking about people who are successful in business. They have successful marriages, and they have successful businesses, and they have successful... Well, you know, the common thing with most of those people is that it's not a lack of caring. It's the fact that they very much manage what they care about. And a lot of it is, I think it's a lie when people say, well, I don't care what people think. You care.
Everybody cares.
Everybody cares.
Everybody cares.
I'll wear what I want, and I don't care what you think. You're wearing what you're wearing because you want me to care about what you're wearing. That's just true. When you have profanity or whatever, you're telling me that I should have a care, good or bad. But in that, the people that are brave enough to do that are the ones who stand behind it too. I do this, and sometimes you get beat down. Sometimes you get things clarified and you change your own opinion. But at least you're doing your own thing. If you're just going to follow the herd and be sheepish about these things, like we talked about before, I go along to get along. Dead fish follow the flow of the river, right? Some people have to it's a battle for a fish to swim upstream. Not only is it against the current, but he's against the others. Where are you going? Go that way. That's hard work.
And that's actually frowned upon in our society. I watch a variety of different podcasts, and when anyone is challenging anyone's ideas or belief systems, just because it's their perspective, they can, and that will be a whole other episode, but cancel culture. Like, well,
Yeah.
let's just get rid of you because what you're saying is hurtful or unkind or whatever.
Yeah. What do you think the lesson is learned by? What lessons should people learn from this?
From
When people hear
when you say this.
when people hear us speak about the lessons of being your own person
Mm-hmm.
and not to feel a victim to social acceptance, what should they take from this?
I think it's awareness is my hope. My hope is awareness that, I mean, it sounds cliche to say you're not alone, but you're not alone. We all want to belong. We all want to feel accepted. We want to have a connection. But at what cost? Which is something we talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
To yourself. If you're continuously negotiating yourself out the door in every aspect and engagement that you're in,
Or
hell,
the
forget
compromise.
it. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
like, it's not worth it to me at that point. That's my hope of around that is a driven awareness here that you don't have to have a score. You don't have to have the like button. You don't have to.
Yeah.
Do you even like you? I mean, it's another part, and that's a huge thing.
We can. There's more to talk about this, and we talked about our upbringing. I have something I always want to pose to people, is that post World War II, Americans were fed a pretty good bag of not lies, but false promises.
Okay.
Buy now, pay later. College is the only way you're going to be a successful person. Home ownership. Those are some pretty big fibs. Now, there was a time that those things mattered, and they were an okay model to pursue. But as we get going, as in all things created by many outside influences, and I would say the banking industry and the school, the post-educational juggernaut that's education now, it's not very feasible. Well, I should say, these are some of the things you're not told about, is we used to be multiple generations in homes. My great-grandmother and my brother, and sometimes even my father, we had 3 generations in one house living there. Other cultures have 5, right? You may have your great-grandmother
Absolutely.
and her great-great-grandchildren living in one home. Yeah.
Mhm.
But in America, we were sold this bill of goods, and let's see if this is new to people and a new concept was, hey, you know what? If you're really doing good, you need to go out and get your own home. Now, that aspires to, I am doing good, and I will go get my new home. But you know what happened was, in the banking industry, they're wringing their hands. Excellent. I took a home that was doing well, I split it in half, now I have 2 mortgages going on.
Can I just tell you that small segue?
Yeah.
And that is the ridiculous size of a home for like 2 people. It's always,
Yeah.
2 people live here? Like,
Yeah.
when I think about, 5 generations living in a home,
Yeah.
and it's like a 3-bedroom home.
Yeah.
But in other homes, it's like 2 people live in this little mini.
I've told you before the story that
Seems right.
my family, my eldest brother owned a large engineering company, and he'd bring representatives over from other countries, and he brought these 4 or 5 Chinese men over, and they walked in his house, and they were taking pictures. How many families live in this home? And he goes, it's just me and my wife. They were blown away because a small village would live in that home, right? And they're blown away. Back to my point,
Yes.
and that is, so now banking has other things too. Buy now, pay later. It's a horrible thing to do with most people who are it's just too easy to, back then it was write checks. Write a check. And you don't see that money leaving your account because it's so easy to just put it on ink on a piece of paper that's a promissory note, and you don't have it. The old joke is, how can I be broke? I still got checks.
Well, and I was going to say that, and the joke is, will you take a check?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Will you take a check?
But
I can write checks all day.
they double down on that. Now they give you a checking account. Hey, you know what you need? You need a debit card. So now you have a checking account, you're writing on that, and I have a debit card. And you know you're not paying attention. I have no idea what I wrote on a check a week ago, and it's going to hit the bank, and I'm going to use my debit card to get fuel or groceries or whatever. Ugh. that plays in the exact same scenario as credit cards.
It's gonna date
It's
me.
just too easy to swipe that card.
When I say this, I know this will be very easy for you to refer to, but it's gonna date me. It's probably
thanks, Liz. Thanks, Liz.
it's probably created in your time.
Go
But-
ahead.
And that is, and this is just the way it is. I don't think it's a fault of any. It is, and that is, my children would know if I told them when I did a checkbook and what the register was.
Yeah.
When I
How to balance?
I would write in my check number and what I did and how much it was, and I deduct what was in my account, and I would go to the register.
Yeah.
And that's how we didn't have online banking on all the things,
No.
right?
No.
So you didn't just gamble and say, well, let's see if there's some money in there.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
No.
I mean,
That's right. And here's the thing. So, a long story short, what's the difference is the people who had a good grasp of these things were the older generation that said, you don't live outside your means,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. They got bills.
Not to give you ammunition, but I'm an all cash guy. I either pay with an account. I know exactly what that's in and exactly what that's for. I pay into that account all the time. But if I have cash, I pay in cash. I don't buy anything. It's a big purchase. It's paid in cash. I know that it's gone in cash. I'm not going to write a check. I'm not going to trade a debit or use credit. I'm going to use cash. That flies in the face of my credit score. Because now my credit score is not growing because I'm not. But you know what?
Clearly don't know how to manage your money.
I could give a crap about my credit score. And that just. And
Well,
today,
which is circle right back down.
I
to
know.
your- So in the Black Mirror, that's what that accrues. It accrues not only your likability, but your financial pieces. Like you cannot get into certain financial institutions because your credit score. She couldn't get into this home, which is ironic because it's true. You can't get some homes because of your credit score. But and they were saying, oh, your circle's too small. You need to get this. You need to do all these things. And so she's just striving to do what she needs to do to get seen. So that's my question. Does society cultivate neediness?
Does it cultivate neediness? It seems to, doesn't it? It seems to be with the ease of swipe up, swipe left or right. Well, I know that I've seen stuff on your phone, your handheld devices, where it's just so easy. Look, swipe, it's mine now. That's beyond credit card. It's swipe, it's mine now. They have your credit card on file. All I gotta do is accept.
That's exactly
Yeah.
on my Amazon account. You can put it in your car or you can buy now. And if you push buy now button, you're immediately, it's shipped.
That's
It's
crazy.
done. It's done. It's a done deal.
It's crazy.
It's all yours.
It's crazy. I just don't know where that ends. Where does that end?
Oh no, it just spirals.
What's the goal? I mean, at some point, there's got to be some resolve that what are we doing by driving a society into just
Instant gratification.
instant gratification? Yeah, that, but I'm just running you into the ground. Is it so that you become reliant on somebody else?
Oh, I mean codependency.
I mean, debtor's prison. Yeah, I mean, are we going to be indentured servants to our country? I don't know. This is all Huxley, Orwellian to me. But it is true. It is actually in place, just like AI, right? But the message I want to try to put to others is this comes from my age, my family, military raised. We don't live in a society that believes in, will fight for, or die for anything. And I mean anything.
I might challenge you.
Anything. I'll take that challenge.
We don't live in a society that will fight for anything.
We don't believe in anything.
We believe in a momentary idea of the thought that we have, and we will stand on our righteous mountain to cut you down.
It's true. But to what point? Would you give your life for it?
Hell no.
Yeah.
I'll give my life for it.
Well, that's my point is I'm I'm the end of the boomers, and all of my family, all the male members of my family have served in our nation. I wore 2 uniforms. In that, I want people to know that it's not a show. I'm not doing it for a show. I'm not doing it for the accolades or even for the, hey, let's recognize the veterans at a hockey game. I don't care what people know about that. I'm just saying we live in a society that now has become so wrapped up in what they think needs to be acceptance by others that you don't even accept where you are or what you live in or what you're doing in your life or the ability to change. That is your choice. You have that ability.
It's always the individual's choice. At the end of the day, the person that has to do most of the work is you.
Yeah.
And you relying on anybody else to do that work will never happen.
That's true. But the message I would send people about acceptance is you can do this all on your own. We've talked about this before, is that people who are successful at a lot of things, if they'll take the time and a bit of humility and look back, they'll realize they couldn't do it alone. But I'm not one that would fall into the paradigm that it took a village. It didn't take a village. It took 1 or 2 people to believe in me, motivate me, inspire me, but definitely somebody I could model. And I can forge ahead. Now I'll find another person, an island of people, a group of people I'll model, right? And I'm not holding myself up as a model to anybody else. I'm just saying that's a good way to go through life. Find people and acceptance be damned. If you really believe in it, do it. If you really believe it, do it.
One more pushback on you. You said this before in a previous episode, maybe body positivity, I can't recall. But when you say that you challenge the village concept, idea, whatever you want to call it.
It takes a village.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
In my upbringing, it's actually a really sweet, cherished memory I have that it's kind of like when you say everybody's poor, you just don't know you're poor, just everybody's poor.
Yeah.
We lived in a very small trailer home, trailer park,
mm-hmm.
and we did help each other though. I mean, it was the cup of sugar. It was, hey, could you have a few bucks for a couple, for some bread and milk? By the way, back then, a couple bucks could get you some bread and milk. But anyways, I'm dating myself. But there was that, hey, I'm going to run to the store. Can you keep an eye on the kids?
I remember that.
And you didn't fear so much of, well, what is this person going to do to my child and things of that nature that you have to consider now. Not to say that those dangers weren't there then. I want to be clear.
Yeah.
But there was a sense of community and family, and it was really quite wonderful.
Yeah, and in my defense, I remember those times too. I remember party lines on phones. I remember that. You'd pick up the phone and ask, is anybody on here? And you could talk. And you could talk and you'd go, I'm on here, because you're hanging up.
And then did you go,
yeah, no, thanks. Thanks, Liz. The pushback I have about the push, Andy Griffiths thing. My pushback, my defense to that is, I remember those times too. I remember watching my mother and grandmother prepare the meat that was offered by a neighbor and would share it among. I remember.
That's right.
I remember.
We would make pots of chili, and this was pretty inexpensive to make. My mom would make vats of chili. Yeah. And we would all be sitting around on the ground in the middle. I mean, it was winter, by the way, and just outside, just talking. Like, it was
big fun.
It was really quite beautiful.
You know what's different though today is you owe me this sugar. Now, and this is hard.
You owe me something.
This is hard to hear. Somebody owes me something. I shouldn't be in this trailer park. I'm a good person, but if I look at your record, you borrow sugar from me every month. You get a grip, get control, if you know you're going to be, well, I can't afford sugar, then stop using sugar. We're only using that as an example. I'm just saying, live within your means, and people will be accepting if it's within means, especially their own means. But if it's within their means of morality and ethics, just if their default mode is kindship, or kindness, it'll work. But we don't. In today's society, we have a lot of people who go through this entitlement, and when it comes to do people feel like they're being accepted? Well, I'm not being accepted. In their own color, on their own size. I have glasses, I have braces, I have head skin. I don't know. Whatever. I'm too tall, I'm too short, I'm too fat, whatever that is. I'm a victim now. And that's where acceptance is back to the bully again, right?
Sure. So to round out this episode,
yeah,
and that is, I'll go back and I'll put that in as my hope in all of our conversation here is I would want you to look within yourself. Who am I comparing myself to?
Yeah.
Why? And even, this is one other thing, stop judging yourself today for who you were 2 days ago, much less 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. Because I can tell you the list 20 years ago is not the list today.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to pay for the sins of my past, of my behaviors and all that. When do I give myself, compassion and consideration and all that? And accept all the growth that I am today as a whole self, as it just me. Well, that's what you can do.
Yeah, you can. And then seek help. Ask for it.
Because you're right, you may not have, necessarily the road paved out in front of you, but go and see if you can get a navigator.
A lot of times in life, the road is being laid brick by brick. Literally, you're walking up and wondering where that next brick will be. And you could be so overextended, you're about to fall. It's a miracle that next brick lands. But you know what? That just takes hard work.
Perseverance.
You have to be able to fall back on what you know works and some very conservative values. And those are the things that hard work but know who you are inside. I can do this. I can do this. What do I always tell you about trading?
You tell me a lot of things about trading.
Yeah. But it was a word you started using when you didn't feel like you could do something.
I can't.
You kept saying it.
I know.
And I don't believe that. If I didn't see...
But I stopped recently.
Yes, you have.
Okay.
But the encouragement of your friends and the people who love and encourage you will be, yeah, you can. Let me show you.
Yeah, you just mostly challenged me. Why are you saying I can't? That wasn't a part of something you used to say before.
Yeah, right. This has become new.
That's when. Then you made me think about it. And I'm like, why am I saying I can't?
Yeah.
So maybe. Thank you again for being here. I appreciate it.
Liz, make sure that you say this little part at the bottom. We haven't been saying.
To go to social media, which is what we just is so ironic that I
we're
say that.
Totally learning as we go.
No, but I'm just saying, I was just talking about likability.
Yeah.
Now, would you please go to social media and like it?
Yeah, that's right. If you want to hear more about...
That's what it's really
If you want to
about.
hear more about...
If you want to hear more, go to our website, my website, Ingrid and Chaos. And also, I'm on all the social media platforms. And like
share, comment.
Comment, yes. I do like comments.
Absolutely.
I'm not opposed. Hey, challenge me. I don't have any issue with that.
Yeah.
Or just inquire, not necessarily challenge.
Yeah, I don't think, just in a quick closing caption, it's just that I get to be Liz's foil a little bit. I get to be a little bit more of the adjutant. And Liz is very good about she's excellent at what she does. She's a goof. But the whole idea is there's going to be some pushback and straight talk, and that's exactly what we want people to have in these kind of conversations.
I couldn't agree more because I'm giving them a little taste. The next episode, we're going to go over one word. We're not putting anything before it or anything after it. And we're going to have a topic from a woman's perspective and a man's perspective on masculinity.
Oh, yeah.
Now, that might be when we get a lot of comments.
That's cool. Yeah, that's cool. All right.
All right.
Thanks, Liz.
Thank you.
See you.